Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial. Today we are going to build a simple note-taking app. We will use React for UI management and component creation and Appwrite as a backend service. So when the user visits the site, they will be redirected to sign up route. Here they can sign up as a new user, or if they have an account, they can click on login. For now, let's sign up as a new user. Click on sign up. After signing up, we will be redirected to notes route. Here we have a search bar, username and logout button. We can create a new node. Click on create node. The node will be created and render here. Let's create another node. Click on create node. Here's the node. Now we can search through different node using the search bar. The search bar is created using Meilisearch. We will look into that later, how we will use Meilisearch to create a search bar and add this feature. If we search through the title, see only the node that matches the search word will render here. We will use this later. For now, let's try to log out. If we log out, we will be redirected to login route. Now we can use our previous email and password. Click on login. See, we are redirected to notes route and our notes are right here. So we can delete the note, and if we refresh, there will be no note here. So now let's install Appwrite. Visit to Appwrite installation page. You can read it here that Appwrite is a self-hosted service. So we need Docker on our system to run the instance of Appwrite. You can read about Docker. I will provide the link in the description. Basically, Docker is a platform as a service. It runs and deploy our application which need all the tools and other things. So let's install Docker. For now, we will install Docker desktop. Let's go to Docker. Now, depending on your system, currently I have Windows on my system. I will install Docker desktop for Windows. If you have Linux, you can go to Linux and choose your platform from here. If you have Ubuntu, click on Ubuntu, download the DEB package and run these commands to set up Docker desktop. Okay, so let's install Docker desktop for Windows. It will start downloading Docker desktop. Docker desktop has been downloaded. So let's run the installer. It will start verifying the package and Docker desktop has been installed. Let's close it. Let's quickly create a React project. So I will open my terminal, move to the directory where you want to create the project. We will use vite to create React project. Make sure you have Node installed on your system. The command will be npm create vite @latest. The name of the folder, we will use noteme and we will provide the template for React. Now it has initialized the React project. Let's move to noteme directory and open VS Code here. So for opening VS Code, the command will be code and full stop. We will close this terminal and open terminal in VS Code. Now you can see this starters file here. So first of all, let's install Appwrite and run the Appwrite instance. For that, we will open the Docker desktop, accept the terms and condition. It will start the Docker engine. So Docker desktop has been started. You can see all the containers listed here. The images will be listed here, and there are other options. So what we are going to do is we're going to pull the image of Appwrite and Meilisearch from Docker Hub and run their instance. So let's go to Appwrite installation page. Now we can run the Docker command through our VS Code terminal. If you have Unix-based system, you will run this command. If you have Windows, you will run this command. So for now, I will run Windows-based command, and since I'm using PowerShell, I will switch to PowerShell and copy this command and paste it in VS Code terminal. Let's paste the command. Now you can see here starting Appwrite installation. It will ask for the port in which Appwrite instance will run. So we will leave it as default ports 80, press enter. Ask for the HTTPS port. We will leave it as default, press enter. Leave everything as default. Now it will run this command docker compose. Now you can see the output as Appwrite installed successfully. So if we visit localhost on our system, we will see an instance of Appwrite. Let's visit localhost. Now when we visit localhost on port 80, we can see the instance of Appwrite running. Let's test it. Localhost on port 80. Now you can see this sign in page. If you already have an account, you can sign in, or if not, let's sign up. Username, I will use my name here. Use your email ID and use a password. Let's sign in. Now, after signing up, it will ask for our first project name. Let's give the project name as Note Me. Click on Create Project. Now you can see that the Note Me project has been created, and now we have to add a platform. For now, we are creating a web app, so we will add a web app platform. Let's click on the add sign. It will ask us to register our app. We will name our app as Note Me. We will leave the local host name as localhost, or we can use the wildcard entry. So let's use star or asterisk. Let's click on next. Now, since we are using npm, we will set Appwrite using npm. Let's move to VS Code and let's create a file called Appwrite config inside source folder. Now you can see we have created Appwrite config file. Now we can install Appwrite using this npm command. Let's copy the command and run it in our PowerShell. Let's enter. Make sure you have Node installed on your system. Now we can see that Appwrite has been installed. We can see a folder of Appwrite inside our parent directory. Now let's move on next step. We can import the client from Appwrite. Let's copy it and import it inside our Appwrite config file. Let's move to next step. So here they have shown us that how we can create a new client instance and set the endpoint of our project and set the project ID. Make sure that you use your own ID. This ID will be different from mine, so make sure you use your own ID. I will copy this and paste it here. Now the client has been created and we have sent the endpoint and project ID. Now let's click on next. Now we are good to go. So we'll click on take me to dashboard. Now we can see all the data and analysis here, like how much bandwidth we have used and how much request we have processed. So Appwrite provide all of the data in your dashboard. Now let's go to Appwrite config file and let's install Meilisearch. Let's go to Meilisearch doc. We'll go to documentation. We can click on quick start and here they will show us a step and installation. So since we already have Docker desktop, we will install it through Docker. Let's click on installation and we can click on Docker. We can see we will pull the image and then we will run the container. So make sure if you are using PowerShell, you will use these curly braces instead of these round brackets. Otherwise, it will throw a Docker format error. So let's run this command. We don't need to use the pull command since if Docker don't find any image locally, it will pull it automatically. So let's directly run this command and make sure write the command manually. Since I have tried it before by copy pasting it, it will give a format error. So write this command manually in your terminal. Now I have typed the command. Let's press enter. It will show that it is unable to find the image locally. Now it will directly pull it from hub. Now we can save see that Meilisearch has been started, and we can see that this ASCII art of Meilisearch. Now, when we will visit a local host with the port of 7700, we will see an instance of Meilisearch running. So let's see localhost 7700. Now we can see the dashboard for Meilisearch. Now we will install all other things that we needed to create this project. First of all, let's install Tailwind on our project. We will go to Tailwind CSS installation page. And since we are using Vite, we will go to framework guides and we will choose Vite here. We will install Tailwind CSS. Let's run this command npm install -d Tailwind CSS, and we will also install post CSS. So let's paste it here. Tailwind has been installed. Let's initiate the Tailwind file. We will copy this command and run it. Now you can see that two files, postcss.config.js and tailwind css config file has been created. Let's open the tailwind config file. On your config file, let's copy this command. It will tell Tailwind that you should apply it over index.html and all the file inside source folder. So let's copy this file and paste it over here. Okay, now we are all set up. Now we can check if Tailwind has been working fine or not by applying it. Let's open app.jsx. Oh, we also have to add this directive to index.css file. So let's copy this and open your index.css. Remove all of this and copy this command. Let's remove all the unnecessary files first. We don't need this app.css. Let's remove it. Let's open app.jsx and remove all these content. We don't need this. Let's simply put a heading here. Let's say hello world at the closing tag. And for checking, let's apply the class here. We will provide this a background of red 100. Let's check if it's working or not. And we don't need this import file either. So let's remove this. We don't need any of this for now. Now let's run the vite server using command npm run dev. Now you can see that it has created a server on localhost 51734. So let's open it. Now you can see the Tailwind class is being applied. Okay, so now it's working fine. We'll install React router for all the routing we need for sign in page and login page. We will install the React router npm I React router DOM, press enter. And we also need a package called UUID, which provides us unique ID. So install it npm I UUID. Okay, so we have installed all the things that we need to start this project. Let's start. On the AppWrite dashboard. So now let's create a database. Let's name our database as notes. So let's give it notes. Now notes has been created. Now we can create collection. Collection is sort of like tables. So let's create a collection. We will name the collection as notes. We will store all of our notes here. Let's create the notes. Now inside the notes, we will create attribute. Attributes, it's like the properties that the notes have. And so let's create attribute. Let's name the attribute as note. So we'll name that as a note. Attribute type, leave it as string. And for now, the attribute contain two parts, the title and description. So let's indicate that it will be an array. So let's create the attributes. Let's give the field size as 256. 256 is more than enough. Let's create it. Now we can see our attributes inside the attributes. Here it is, here is our attributes notes. The type is an array of string. Okay. Now we can create document here, but we will use JavaScript to create dynamic documents. Let's move to VS Code. Now, first of all, let's change the title of our project. Let's name it Note Me and just control S. Now, when we see the title has been changed to Note Me, you can see it here. So let's move to app.jsx. Now we are going to work on app.jsx. So let's start with importing some hooks from React. We will import create context. We will make sure you have React Router DOM installed. Okay. So let's create a user state here. You want to use use state hooks here. So we will provide a username to user. Leave it as empty for now, and email. Give it this empty for now. Now what we are going to do, we'll create a use effect. So whenever this component mounts for the first time, it will check if the user is already logged in. So we'll create a async function. Since we are connecting to Appwrite, so it will be a asynchronous function. So make sure you use the async keyword before the function. So let's create the function get logged user. We'll get the logged user if it's there. Now what we're going to do, we're going to try first. We're going to use try catch block. So we're going to await. It's a very simple method to get the current user. We are going to use account.get. So we are going to import account that we have created on our appwrite config file. So we will create an account on our appwrite config file. Let's create account. Const account equals to new account. Make sure you import account from appwrite. New account. We will give this parameter of client. Okay. Now we have created account. Let's export it. Export client. We are going to export. We're going to export account to account. Okay, so for now, let's use account here. Now make sure you have imported the account from applet config file. Now what we're going to do, we're going to await this function, which is account.get. Now, if a user is already logged in, we will get a result back. So we're going to set the user, set user. We're going to set the username as result.name, and we are going to set the email at result.email. You can learn about more Appwrite API using their docs. I will provide the link in the description. Now, after setting the user, we will navigate to do nodes route. We will create this route. Let's create a navigate hook. Use const navigate equals to use navigate. So we are going to use navigate to routes. And if some error occur, we'll catch the error, and we're going to console.error error.message. We're going to console the message. Now finally, we'll call this function in get log user. We will provide an empty dependency array. Empty dependency array means that we are only going to run this use effect for the first time when the components mount. So let's provide this empty dependency array. Now let's create a sign up function that let the user sign up. All the functions that connect to Appwrite will gonna be asynchronous. So this will also gonna be asynchronous function. Sign up function will take a data. The data usually will be the username, email, and password. So we will take a data. Now here again we'll use a try catch block. Now try await. Now for creating account we will use account.get. Make sure to refer the Appwrite docs. You can see the Appwrite docs here. They are very well written, so you can easily understand. You can read all about the APIs from the Appwrite docs reference. See, like for creating a account, we can click on create account, and they will provide you all the code snippets that you need at creating client, creating account, setting the endpoints, and creating this account, everything else. So make sure you refer to the Appwrite docs. Now you're gonna handle sign up. So we're gonna create an account. Creating account is very simple. We're gonna do account.create. Now it will take a ID, unique ID, and it will take email, password, and username. So suppose we are getting all the information from data object. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna provide this data.email. We're gonna provide data.password, and we're gonna provide data.username. Now for unique ID, we're gonna import ID from Appwrite. Import ID from Appwrite. Now we can create unique ID, id.unique. So that's it. This simple code snippet will create a new account. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a email session. So every time user don't have to sign up again and again. So let's create a email session. We're gonna do account dot create email session. And what we're gonna provide, we provide data.email and data.password. So for this email, we're gonna create an email session. Now if this all gets success, like the account creation success, and we have success to create the email session, we're gonna set the user. So let's set the user. We're gonna provide the username to data.username, email to data.email. And if some error occur, we are gonna catch it. Let's catch the error, and we're simply gonna alert the error. Alert error.message. Okay, that's it. Now what we're gonna create, we're gonna create a login function. So when the user login, it will handle the login functionality. Let's create a login function. From the login inputs, we're gonna get the data. So let's take a data. Same here, we're gonna use a try catch block. Now for logging, we're simply gonna create an email session. So let's use account dot create email session. We're gonna use data.email and data.password. That's it. Now after creating the email session, we will get the user. So we're gonna use get user. So we're gonna store the user logged user variable, and we're gonna await for account.get. So basically what's happening, account.get will give you the current logged user. So we're gonna store the logged user information in logged user. And after getting the logged user, we're simply gonna set the user. So set user, username will be logged user dot name, and email will be logged user dot email. That's it. Now suppose handle login succeed. We are succeed in creating the email session and getting the current user. So what we are gonna do? We are gonna simply navigate the user to nodes route. We are gonna create this now in routes in few minutes. Let's create the routes route. And if some error occur, we are gonna catch the error and alert the error message. Okay, that's it. Now the last function that we need, it is a handle logout. So we will let the user to log out. Logging out is very simple. All we have to do is delete the current session. You will see. Let's create the handle logout function. Now we are gonna use try catch block, and we are simply gonna do await account dot delete session. Now delete session will delete the session that we provide using the session ID. If you want to delete the current session, simply we are gonna provide the string and as current. That's it. Now after logging out the user, we are gonna set the user to empty since we have no user logged in. So let's set the username to empty and email to empty string. And we're simply gonna navigate the user to login route. That's it. And if some error occur, we're gonna catch the error and console.log the error message. Okay, so we have created all the function that we need. Now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna create a context for user instead of drilling the props down the children. So we call it prop drilling. We are not gonna do prop drilling here. We'll use context API. So let's import context API. We're gonna use create context. We have imported create context here. So let's simply create a context here and export the context. So we're gonna export user context. What we're gonna do, we're gonna create the context, create context. Okay, so we're gonna export the user context variable, export const user context. Now we are gonna wrap all the routes and everything inside this context. So the children have access to user context. Let's use user context dot provider. We will provide the value as user. That's it. Now keep in mind that we have used navigate here. So we are using use navigate hook. So we need to wrap our whole app in a router. Understand? So we can use the use navigate hook. Otherwise it will throw the error. So let's wrap the app.jsx inside router. We are going to import browser router from React router dom. And we are going to wrap up the whole app inside this. That's it. Okay, so now let's create some routes. We're going to use routes, and inside routes we'll create our first route. Now, if the user visit the site and the path is default slash what we are going to render. Now, if the user.email is not is defined, so we are going to render. See here, we are going to use something called protected routes. We are going to only route to specific pages only if the user is logged in. So if the user.email is defined, then we are going to use navigate to nodes route. Okay, and we are going to replace the history true. You can learn more about these hooks from internet, or I will provide the link in the description. So let's navigate. Otherwise, if the user is not defined, we are going to ask the user to sign up. So let's navigate to sign up page, and we are going to replace it to. So basically, replace to is replacing the history stack to the current routes. Okay, so let's replace it. Okay, that's it. Now what we are going to do here, now we are going to create the second route. The second route will be, the path will be login. If the user visit the login route, now we are going to render simply a login page. We'll create this login page here, and we are going to handle it. So we'll send the login as props, handle login. So basically what we are doing, we will create a login component, and we will provide it a function handle login as props, so the user can log in. So let's create the next route. The next route will be nodes route. If the user visits the nodes route, now we'll gonna make sure that user is defined. So we're gonna use if user.email is defined, then only render the nodes component. Otherwise, navigate the user to sign up prompt and replace the history stack. So let's provide it through. Now inside the nodes, we will create a logout button. So let's pass it as logout, handle logout. Let's pass it as handle logout function. Okay, that's it. Now we will create a sign up route. Let's create a sign up route here. If the user visit the sign up route, we're gonna render the sign up component, and we will pass a handle sign up function. Let's pass it handle sign up function. That's it. And finally, we will create a route that show errors 404 error. If user visit a random route, we're gonna render a 404 error. So let's create the route path that is other than all of the path we have provided above here. So we are gonna render a simple heading which will say that 404 page not found. That's it. And we're gonna style this heading using Tailwind. Let's provide this class here. That's center. So this is basically a bare bone, and I'm just creating CSS that I have created before. There's nothing fancy here. If you want to learn Tailwind CSS, you can refer to their docs. It's very simple. That's it. I think we have created all the routes. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create these elements. Okay, like login, sign up. So I will provide you a template file that we have all the template. Like for login, I have created the template file, like all the CSS and HTML. There's nothing here, like just like input field and div. So you can just copy it here. I will provide the link in the description for the GitHub file. You can copy the template for specific component from here, like for login and sign up page. So let's create a component folder here, components folder, and let's inside the components folder, let's create a sign up component, sign up.jsx. So let's import all the hooks that we are going to use in the sign up page. First of all, let's import a reference hook, a state hook from React. Now we are going to use a link so we can link to different login and sign up page. Let's import link. We're going to use navigate. So let's import use navigate from React router.com. Now let's create the sign up component function, sign up. Remember, we have passed this on the sign up component. We have passed the function handle sign up. So we are gonna use all these functions for sign up page and login page and notes page. Keep that in mind. So let's take the handle sign up function. Now what we're gonna use, use navigate hook. So use navigate, that will help us to navigate the user. Let's create a simple state here to store the input field user data and set user data. Let's use state hook. Leave it as empty for now. Okay, so now we are going to use the template of sign up page. Let's use a template. You can find the template here. Let's copy this return statement. We're going to let's move all these things. We don't need it for now. Okay, so let's copy it here. Now, what we have here, we have an input field for username, input field for email, and an input field for password, and a sign up button. And what we have a link. We are using link. If the user is already a member, we are gonna link it to login down. So let's use that. Remove this bad formatting here. Now let's create some state and make this a stateful component. First of all, we will create a handle change function that will store the changes that we are gonna make in input field. So handle change. Let's provide the name as e.target.name. Since we are gonna store the input field name and we are gonna store the value. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna use the set user data and we are gonna take the previous state, and first of all we will destruct the previous state. We don't want to replace all the state here. Let's destruct the previous state and change the current name to value. So what we are basically doing here, we are destructing the current state and we are setting the name key to value. Okay, that's it. That's our handle change function. Now let's pass it to the input field. There we are going to pass an on change and use handle change. Same for this input field and same for this input field. Okay, that's it. Now we are going to create a handle click function. So when the user clicks sign up button, this function will be asynchronous because we are going to talk to Appwrite. Okay, so this function will going to be asynchronous. Let's create the handle click function. And first of all, we are going to create a reference. So we will keep in mind that if any of these input fields are invalid, we're not going to let the user to sign up. So let's create a reference hook here. We're going to use reference here. Let's create password reference, use reference. The reference should be empty. And same we are going to do for email reference. And we're going to do the same for username reference. Okay, that's it. Now what we're going to do when the user handle click, okay, when the user asks to sign up, we're going to check if the input field are valid. So for that, we're going to set the reference to username reference, set the email reference to email reference, and set the password reference to password reference. Okay. Now when the user clicked to sign up, we're going to first check if the email reference current value is valid or not. So we're going to use the JavaScript validity API, validity dot valid. If the email reference value is valid, and we're going to use the same thing for all the reference, we're going to copy it. And if the password reference current value is valid, and if the username reference current value is valid. If all of the three are valid, we are going to simply do prevent default. And if all of the three are valid, we are going to use handle signup. Remember, we have created a signup function in our app.jsx here. Now we are going to call this function, and we are going to pass the data of username, email, and password. So we are going to await the handle signup, and we are going to set the user data. Okay, so we are going to pass this user data. Now what we're going to do, if the user successfully sign up, we're going to navigate the user to notes route. That's it. Now we're going to pass this handle click button to the sign up handlers. So let's move to sign up handler. Let's change this to sign up. Okay. So we're going to pass it to sign up handler. Let's pass it on click. We're going to pass the handle click button. That's it. Now what we're going to do, we're going to create a login route. So let's create a component of login.jsx. Now from the template file, just copy the component. So let's copy the login component and paste it here. Let's remove this bad formatting. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we are going to simply log in the user. So first of all, let's import all this hook that we are going to use here. We're going to import use reference here, and we're going to use this use state hook here. Import the, we are also going to use link to link the user if the user is already logged in or signed up. So let's use link from React router down. Now remember, we have passed a login function to our login route. You can see it here. That's we have passed the handle login handler. So let's use it. Handle login. We're gonna use the handle login here. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna simply create some state to store these input values. So let's create a state. We're gonna create a state of const user data and set user data. We are gonna use state hook here. And let's create a change handler. So let's create a function handle change, and let's pass the name as e.target.name. We're going to do the same thing that we have used in sign up page. So let's quickly do it. Let value equals to e.target.value, and we're simply going to set the user. We're going to use the previous state. Destructure previous state and set the name key to value. That's it. Now we will pass this change handler to input field. Let's pass it on change, call the handle change, copy it and pass to the all input field here. Okay. Now what we're going to do, we're going to create a reference here. So let's create reference. Basically, we will do the same thing that we do in sign up route. We're going to check if the input are valid or not. So let's create a password reference, use reference, or now leave it as empty string. Let's create an email reference here and use reference. Now what we're going to do, we're going to pass this reference in the input field. Let's pass the reference. So for email, we are going to pass the email reference, and for password, we are going to pass the password reference. No, that's it. Okay, so we also need to make this input as control component. So what we are gonna do is we are gonna set the values of input and make them as control component. So let the set the value. The value will be user dot email. If the user data is defined, we're gonna check if user data is defined. So let's set the value to its email. Otherwise, set it as empty string. We're gonna do same for the password field. So let's paste it here. I'm gonna change this to password. That's it. We also gonna do the same thing to sign up page. Let's move to sign up page and we're gonna change these values. So let's for email reference, we're gonna set the value to if user data is defined, we're gonna set it to email. Otherwise, we're gonna set it to empty string. Let's do the same for all of these input field. Change this to username and do the same for password field. Change this to as password. Okay, that's it. Now what we're gonna do? Now what we're gonna do? We're gonna use the handle login function. So when the user click login button, it will log in the user. So let's create a function. We're gonna create a function called handle click, and we're gonna do same like we did for sign up page. We're gonna check if the email reference current value is valid or not. And let's copy it. We're gonna do same for all of these. Okay, so we're gonna change to password reference. So we don't need the third one. Let's remove it. If both of them are valid, what we're gonna do? We're gonna simply log in the user. So let's first of all prevent the default behavior and let's use await and handle login. We're gonna pass the user data. Make sure you have the async keyword since you are using await here. Same for the sign up prompt. Make sure you have the async keyword here too. Now what we're gonna do? We're gonna simply use this route. So let's move to app.jsx and import this component. Let's import login from components and login, and let's import sign up from let's import sign up from components sign up page. That's it. Now what we're gonna do? We are gonna create a node component. So let's inside the component folder, let's create another folder. We'll call it as nodes. And inside this nodes folder, let's create a file called nodes.jsx. And make sure to export these components. Like for sign up page, let's export the sign up component, export default sign up. And for login component, export the component, export default login. That's it. And we had a typo here. Make sure that the name are correctly spelled. React router. It's not route, it's router down. Now let's check our app. If we go to our page, see we have already routed to sign up route. Since we have written here that if user visit the site and user.email is not defined, let's route the user to sign up page. We can see that the user is currently not defined. Okay. And now if we click to login, let's see what happens. See, we have routed to login route. Very good. So we have written this thing. Now all we have to do is to send the user data to Appwrite and create the node component. So let's do it. Inside the node.jsx, let's simply create a user state, and you can use the template here. Let's go to template and copy this function, paste it here, and make sure you export it. Export default node. So this is going to be our main page. For now, let's go to template txt file, and we are going to import the nodes component. Let's copy it and paste it here, and make sure to export it. Export default nodes. For now, let's render it without nodes. We have written all nodes here. Let's try to render it. And if we set the username, it will gonna render this. So first of all, let's import the component. We're gonna import the nodes component from component folder inside nodes folder and node.jsx. So let's import it. So let's check the route. Now, if we sign up with username, make sure to use 8-character password. Since we have provided the min length to the password here, you can see it here. We have provided the min length of 8 character. And now, if we sign up, okay, so now we can see that we have a sign up route, and if we click on login, we will redirect to login route. So let's create a nodes component. Now, inside the nodes component, we are going to create all the headers node form like we have used in template string. We're going to create a node form component and a header component. So let's create them first. Inside the nodes folder, let's create a component called header.jsx. Inside the file, let's create another file called node form that will take the user input to create nodes. Let's create a file node form.jsx. Now on the header.jsx, let's copy the template of header file. Let's copy this component and paste it here, and make sure to export the component. Now we're gonna create some state here. So user can log out and use the function of logout. So first of all, what we are gonna do, we are gonna import the hooks. Let's import all the hooks from React that we're gonna use. First of all, we're gonna use the context that we have created on our app.jsx. You can see here we have used the user context. Now we're gonna use it, user context from React, and we're gonna import that user context from app file, and we are gonna simply use the context here. So let's use the context. Const user equals to use context, user context. So that's it. Now we are going to render the username right here, change it to use the username. We're going to use user.username since username have email address and username. Now keep remember that this search bar is for Meilisearch. We will integrate Meilisearch in later part. So let's keep it here. Now let's simply create a button and provide it the on-click handler. Let's provide the on-click handler here and provide the handler to use the logout function. So we are going to use the handle logout, and we are going to use the handle logout function here. So basically the handle logout function is that we have created inside the app.jsx. You can see it here. So what we are going to do, we have passed the handle logout function to nodes, and from nodes we are going to pass it to header. So let's pass it through here. First of all, let's take the handle logout function and pass it to header. This can be a little complicated, so make sure you know how the prop dealings and passing the props works, and you have a better grasp at React.js. So on the button handler of header.jsx, we have created the handle logout function. Okay, that's it. So now in the nodes.jsx, we have a header component. Now we are going to create a node form component. So inside the node form folder file, let's create a node form component. You can use a template file and copy the HTML or node form. Let's copy it from here and paste it here. Let's use the better formatting here. Remove all the extra things. We don't need this formatting. So let's remove this. So what we are doing in the node form, we will have an input field for title. We will store the title of the node, and we will have a span that will count how many letters we have typed. So it will basically count the character, and we have an input field for description. Now let's create some state here. First of all, we are going to import the hooks that we will use and make sure to export it. So export default node form. Now let's import all the hooks that we need. So import use effect. We are going to use reference hook, and we are going to use state hook. And that's it. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create the nodes here. So first of all, let's create a handle create function that will create nodes. So let's move on to nodes.jsx. And inside nodes.jsx, let's create some state here. First of all, we are gonna import all the things we need. So let's import them. Let's import use effect. Let's import use state. We're gonna store some states here. Okay. Now we are gonna use Meilisearch. Make sure you have installed Meilisearch. If not, then you can see the previous part of the video where we have installed the Meilisearch using Docker. So let's import the Meilisearch. We're going to import Meilisearch from Meilisearch. Now make sure you have installed Meilisearch using Docker. You can see the previous part of the video where we have installed Meilisearch. So let's use Meilisearch and make sure you have installed Meilisearch as dependency also. npm installed Meilisearch. Okay, so we have installed as a dependency also. Now we can import it. Meilisearch, let's import from Meilisearch. We're going to import the Meilisearch class. So we will create new client using Meilisearch. And what we're going to use, we're going to install the node form. We're going to import the node form. Let's import node form. And we're going to import the header. Let's import header. And we're going to import unique ID that we have installed before. So let's import v4s uuid v4. So we can provide unique ID for the nodes that we render. And finally, we are going to import all the IDs that we will create in Appwrite config. So let's create them. In the Appwrite config, we are going to create the database ID variables that we need. So let's create them. We will go to our dashboard of Appwrite. Inside the overview, we can see the project ID here. So click to copy. Let's copy the project ID and let's create another variable const project ID, and let's give this ID, paste the ID. Make sure you paste your own ID here. Let's create another variable database ID. So you will get the database ID from database, and we can click here to copy the database ID. Let's copy it, and we are gonna paste it here. Finally, what we need the collection ID here. So let's create a variable called node collection ID, and we're gonna paste it. So we're gonna paste it from collection. Let's copy here collection ID and paste it here. So let's create database. So let's use database const databases equals to new databases, and inside the databases we are going to provide the client. So we provide the client here, and we are going to provide the database. We are going to provide the project ID. You can refer to the docs to learn more about them. That's it. We have created everything that we need. So let's export them. Let's export databases, database ID, databases. We need node collection ID, and that's it. And we also need project ID. So let's export it too. Now inside the node form, now inside the nodes file, we're going to import the everything that we just created. So let's import database ID. Let's import databases. Let's import node collection ID. That's it from Appwrite config file. And finally, let's import ID from Appwrite. That's it. Now what we're going to do, we're going to create some states here. So let's create the state. We're going to create a node state that will store all the nodes. Let's leave it as empty array for now. We're going to create the search word, which will store the search word from the header, search word, and set search. Now we're going to set it up for now empty string. And finally, we're going to create a state that will make sure that we have deleted the node or we have loaded the nodes. So let's create those states. Since it is a synchronous function, so it will take some time. That's why we will create this state set deleting. Let's for now use a set as false, that we are not deleting anything for now. Same for loading state. Set it as false, that we are not loading anything now. Now what we are going to do, we are going to create a new client. Basically, in Meilisearch, we will create clients so we can search through the keys that we provide. You can learn more about them using their documentation here, how everything works, how we can integrate the front end using Meilisearch. So you can learn more about them in their docs. For now, let's create the new client. Const client equals to new Meilisearch. Make sure you have imported the Meilisearch. And what we are going to pass, we are going to pass the host. Now you can see the instance of Meilisearch is running at localhost 77004. So we are going to pass this. The host will be HTTP localhost, and the port will be 7700. That's it. We have created a new client. It's simple as that. Now let's create a use effect. So whenever the user first loaded this component, the component is mount. We are going to create a function, asynchronous function, that will get all the nodes. So we'll create a function get nodes, and we're going to use try catch block. So let's store the nodes on the variable get nodes, and we're going to await for what? Await for database to list all the documents. Now we're going to pass the database ID, from which database we need the document, and the collection ID, from which collection we need the data. So let's pass the database ID as database ID we have imported, and node collection ID. That's it. Now what we're going to do, we're going to map all the nodes and filter only the information that we need. So let's use const result equals to get nodes. We will use this variable get nodes, and we will map it. And we only need to return the info that we need. So we're going to destruct the i.node. Since node is an object itself, so we're going to destruct it, and we're going to set the ID as i.id. So this variable is basically coming from Appwrite response. We're going to use it. Now what we're going to do, we're going to simply set the node. Set nodes to result. Okay, that's it. Secondly, we're also going to set the nodes. We're going to set the nodes to the API key we can see here. Select an index. We're going to create a new index here. Now we're going to set the nodes here. So we're going to also do one thing. We're going to add the nodes to the index of Meilisearch. You can see it here. Select the index. There is no index for now. So when the components mount, we're going to set the index. So let's set it. We're going to use a response to store response equals to await client dot index. In the index, we're going to name the index as nodes, and we're going to add documents as this result. So result is basically the filter nodes that we stored here. So we're going to use that. Now, Meilisearch don't add the document directly. You have to wait for few minutes or few seconds. I mean, it depends. It can be few milliseconds too. So let's await it. So you have to wait few seconds or few milliseconds. So let's await the task to end. Basically, response will provide you the task ID. So let's use the task ID. So let's await client, wait for task. And we will use the response ID, response task UID. And they're going to provide a parameter. You can learn about this API in your docs. So we're going to pass the parameter. Let's timeout millisecond would be 5000 milliseconds. So we'll basically wait for 5000 milliseconds. And interval for check-in would be basically 50 milliseconds. If the task is done or not. After the task is done, we're simply gonna move ahead. And if the error occurs somewhere, we're gonna catch the error and simply log the error. Console.log error.message. And that's it. And we're gonna call the function, get node function here. Get node function. We only run this use effect when the component mount at the first time. So let's use a dependency array NP. Now what you're going to do, we're going to create another use effect. So whenever the user search in the search bar, it run this function. So let's use effect. Basically, it will run when the user add new node or delete nodes or change or search something in the search bar. So we are going to create a use effect. We're going to create a function which will be asynchronous and it will search with Meilisearch. We will create this function search with Meili, and we're going to store the search result here. Const search. We're going to await. We're going to use client.index. So from the nodes index, I want to search. So I will use search. What I want to search? I want to search a search word. I want to use a search word. Basically, search is a state that we have created here. It will store the input value of the search bar. So we're going to search the search word, and I'm going to pass options here. The limit of the search result should be 40, and the attributes that should be highlights are basically the title of the nodes. So let's just title. Now when the search result come, I want to set the node size. Since I also only want to render the nodes that match the search result. So set nodes search dot hits. Basically, search dot hits provide us all the object that matches the search bar, the word we have typed on the search bar. Since if the component first mount, the search bar will be empty. So what Meilisearch provider is that if the search word is empty, it will return all the components inside the nodes documents. Okay, so it will provide all the nodes here. Now let's simply call this function search with Meili, and as a dependency array, we're going to send three things here. First of all, we're going to send a search word change. So whenever search word change, you should run the function. Whenever loading is changed, you should run the function. Basically, loading means if we add nodes or delete a node, and whenever delete status change, you will run this function. That's it. Now let's create a handle search function that will basically search with Meilisearch and contact with Meilisearch. It will basically save the state of the search bar. So let's create the function handle search, and we're gonna set the search keyword. We're gonna set the search state as e.target.value. Whatever the value inside the search input, we will gonna set it as a search. Now let's create a function called create node. We will create node, so that it will be an asynchronous function since we will talk to Appwrite database here. So let's create handle create node try catch block again, and we're gonna await. Now creating a new document, we will create the API of database dot create document. See how simple is that? Create document, delete document. That's it. We're gonna provide the database ID, node collection ID, and we're gonna provide a unique ID here. So we use ID dot unique, and for data we'll provide the node data here. That's it. So after creating and adding the nodes, now we will we will set the node to Meilisearch index 2. So let's use it. Response await client, and in the client of index nodes, we're simply going to add documents, and inside the documents we will provide it in a single array, and we will provide the object. So we just took the response we are getting from here, response.node, and make sure that you will use the ID that Appwrite provide as a response. So we will use ID response.id. Okay, so that's it. Again, we will wait for the task to end. So we will use await client dot wait for task, and we're going to use the response dot task UID. And we will pass the option as timeout. So let's set the timeout as 5000 milliseconds and interval as 550 milliseconds. That's it. After that, we're simply gonna set the loading as false. That the loading is false now, and make sure to set the loading as true before calling this Meilisearch function. So we will set the loading as true. Basically, what we are doing is we are setting that loading as true. That is an indication that we are still processing the Meilisearch integration. Let's set it as false. And if the error occurs, we're going to simply catch the error. We're going to catch the error here, and we're going to console.log the error message. That's it. Now we're going to create a function of handle delete that will delete the nodes. So let's create a async function of handle delete. It will take an ID that let us know that which node should we delete. Let's await for the database to delete the document. Now for deleting document, we should provide the database ID, collection ID, and document ID. So let's provide the database ID here, node collection ID, and the ID that we ID of the node that we should delete. That's it. Now again we have to delete it from the Meilisearch. So let's set const respond equals to await client dot index of index of nodes. We're going to delete the document, and we're simply going to pass the ID here. That's it. Now we're going to await for the task. Await client dot wait for task. We're going to pass the task UID, and we're going to pass the option as timeout. The timeout should be around 5000 milliseconds, and interval should be around 50 milliseconds. That's it. If you think that it's becoming more complex and complex. Make sure you refer to the docs there, the docs of Appwrite and Meilisearch. Now we will toggle the deleting state. So set deleting should be the previous state should be toggled down. That's it. Now inside the header, we're going to pass the props. So let's pass all the function that we have created. Handle search. We're going to pass the handle search function here, and we're going to pass the search word here, search word, and that's it. And inside the node form, we will pass all the handle create function. So we can create the node, and we will provide the handle search function. That's it. Now inside the node here, now we will create a node class. Now inside the header, we will pass the function that we have created as props. So let's pass the handle search function, and let's pass the search word. Okay, let's fix this typo to node form. Node form. And here we're gonna pass the node creation function that we have created here, handle create. So let's pass it here, handle create, handle create. That's it. So now what left is to create the node component and render this component. To do so, let's create a file called node.jsx inside the nodes folder. Let's create a file node.jsx. Basically, it will be a template of single node card. Now uh, go to template.txt and copy the node file node.jsx. So let's copy it and paste it inside here, and make sure to export it. That's it. So let's see what we have here. We have a node component, uh, a div inside. We will render our title here, and we will render a description here, and we have a delete button, so we can delete the node. Now what we are going to do, we are going to pass the handle delete function to the node components. Okay, so let's render these nodes. So let's remove this and render it here. Firstly, what we're going to check, if the loading state is true, it means the data is still fetching, or we are still talking to Appwrite database. If loading is still true, then we are going to render loading. Otherwise, now what we are going to do, we're going to take the node state. You can see it here. We have created a node state. We have created node state, which is an array. It is basically array of an object. So it will contain title and description. So for nodes, let's render it. We will use map. The nodes.map will take the data, and now let's name it node instead. So we will take a single node, and for single node we will render the component node. Here we will pass the key. The key should be unique. So let's set it as UUID, unit ID, and set it the ID. ID, we are going to use ID for keeping track that which nodes we are deleting. So when we delete the node, we will pass the specific ID. So the ID will be node ID. The ID will be node.id. Node is basically an object, so node.id. And the title will be node.title. The title will be here, specifically node.title. And the description will be node.description. If you will go through these functions component and the state that we have created, you will understand this clearly. That's what we are doing. Finally, we will create a handler to delete the function. So handle delete, it will delete the node. And here we are going to call the handle delete function, and we're going to pass the node.id. That's it. Now make sure to use curly braces here, where it is, and this component, and that's it. Now let's import the node component that we have created. We will import it here. So import node from node. Okay. So what we are doing is we are checking if loading is true. If it's true, render loading. Otherwise, map through all the nodes and render the node component by providing these props. Now let's go to node.jsx and handle all these props that we have passed. So we will use description, title, ID, and handle delete function, which will delete the node. Now all we have to do is just replace this thing with the title. Now replace it with title. Replace the description with the node description. And on the delete function, we will create a handler on click. On click should be equal to call a function handle delete by passing the current ID. And that's it. We are done with the node component. Now what we are going to do, we are going to use all the props that we are using to node form. So inside the node form, let's see what we are passing at props. You can see that inside nodes, we are passing handle create function to node form. So let's use it, handle create function. And we also going to use the user. So we will use the use context. And we also going to use a state for to store the node that we are typing in the input field. So let's create a state const node and set node. We'll create the state, and for now leave it as empty object. Now we are going to create a title reference. Title reference, we'll use reference hook. That's it. Now we are going to create a handle change function. So whenever the input field change, it will set the nodes field accordingly. So let's use the name. That name equals to e.target.value, and the value will be e.target.value. Here it would be name. Now we will do the same that we are doing. We will use a set node, take the previous state, and first of all destructure it. Now we will set the name key to value. And that's it. Now we are going to use handle click function. So whenever user click to create node, first of all we are going to check if node.title is defined or not, if the field is defined or not. So and node.description, both of them are defined. Then we are going to create the node. We'll use the handle create function that we are getting from the nodes component. Here we are sending handle create function. Let's use it, and we simply send the node object to create new node. After creating new node, we will empty the input field. So we'll use the set node to empty object. Okay, that's it. Whenever the component mount or the first time, we're gonna focus the input field, input cursor on it. So let's use vectors, and we'll use the title reference here. We want to focus on the title reference, so let's focus on it. So we will use empty dependency array. That's it. Now we are simply gonna pass the on change, pass the function change handler here. So we'll pass the handle change. We'll do the same for all the input fields. And now we're gonna make it as control component. So the value will be node.title. If it's if it is empty, then leave it as empty. And the reference of the title will be title reference. Now we're gonna do same for the description. Inside the description, let's add the value. Value will be titled node.description. If it is defined, otherwise that is an empty string. Now in this span, what we are doing is we are checking if the title length is defined or not. If it's not, then we leave it as 0. That means that we have typed 0 character till now. So it is basically checking the length of the string. Now finally, we will go to the button create node, and whenever user click on it, so we will on click handler. We want to call handle click function. What is handle click function? Handle click function is checking first if the title description is defined. If it's defined, it's gonna call the handle create function and set the node as an empty object. And make sure that on the login.jsx we have passed the login handler. I just forgot to pass it. So on click, we're gonna call the handle click function that we have created. Now we are gonna do a very important thing. We will go to Appwrite instance that is running on our browser. In the authentication, we can see that we will see all the user here, and when we go to settings, we will see all the authentication provider here, like Amazon, Apple, or Geo. There are many more, and we can use all these methods to authenticate the user, like JavaScript web token, magic URL, email password, and we can sign the user as anonymous. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna move to database. On the database nodes, in the collection nodes, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go to setting and we will update the permission, like who's gonna manipulate the node collection. Let's add a role and we will provide all the users to create, read, update, and read the node. That's it. We're gonna update. You can say that permission has been updated. Make sure that we are mapping through the get nodes response and we will use the object, we'll use the key of documents. So get nodes dot documents. So we will map on the documents, not on the get nodes itself. We have made a mistake before, so let's fix it. Now finally, what we're gonna do, we will use all the props that we are sending on the header component. So let's use them. So we're gonna use the handle search function, and we're gonna use search word. Okay, so all we have to do is we have to provide the on-change handler to the handle search. So whenever the input or search bar change, the Meilisearch should search the specific nodes, and we will set the value to search word. That's it. Now we are all set. Let's check our app and see how the things are working step by step. So let's move to our site, Note Me. See, whenever the user will load the page, he will be redirected to, they will be redirected to sign up now. Now let's set the username. Let's use the email. And if user left any one of the field, it will be show the validation that please fill out the field and make sure the password should be minimum 8 character long. So let's fit the password. Let's click on sign up. See, it will show the error that please enter this password to 8 character. Let's sign up. After signing up, we can see that my username is here, the logout button is here, and now we can create the note. So let's put a title, morning walk, and you can see that it will count the number of character here. So let's put in morning walk. Go to morning walk. Now let's click on create note. Here it is, our note has been created. So let's see what's really happening. Now when the user sign up, we can go to dashboard of Appwrite, and when we click on auth, we can see the user is listed here. The name, identifier, here it is my Gmail, and it will show the status, user ID, and when the user joined. And then we go to database, we'll go to notes database, notes collection. Here it is, we can see our note is here. And we can see the documents is listed here. And on the Meilisearch part, you can see that our note is listed here, the title, description, and the ID. So we are doing great now. Let's try to log out and log in again. And we will see that its notes is still here. So let's log out. See, immediately we are routed to login route. Let's use our email, password, click on login. Here it is, our note is right here. So all is left to check this search functionality. So let's quickly create more notes. So here it is. I have created some notes. Let's try out our search bar. So the search bar will search the note using their titles. Let's try it. I will try M. See, the title that contain M in their title, all the notes contain M in their title will render. Morning. Let's type out movie night. See how beautifully it only render the movie night. So that's it. You have created a very good note app. Well done. Thank you.